Hey, Last in Line Nation, welcome to another month and another great new series called Continuity of Care for February. Hey, 1 month is under our belt for 2021. We're about to start month number 2, and we're going to start it off right. We've got a great leadoff hitter for February, and I want to read a little bit of his bio, and then I'm going to let him share about himself because I want you to connect with him, because I have no doubt today you're going to hear from a guy who's walked the path. He's got the experience. He knows what he's talking about, and he's going to give you some powerful, tangible, practical nuggets to take home and start today. So let me introduce you to Daniel Gomez. All right. He is an award-winning keynote speaker, business strategist, corporate trainer, and executive coach. He's done it all in this space, folks. He's a founder. He's the president of Daniel Gomez Enterprises. He speaks and coaches at events all over the world. His passion, now I want you to catch this. This is huge. His passion is to elevate businesses and entrepreneurs to achieve their true potential through training and coaching programs. So he's got passion for other people, to watch them grow, watch them win. I love it. He's empowered his clients to build epic success in personal and professional lives. He's an international best-selling author of a book called You Were Born to Fly. It's a book written to inspire and give people high performance habits and confidence needed to be the leaders of their own destiny. So I want to also say that Daniel's high energy and ability to unlock untapped potential in people have made him highly sought out speaker and trainer for top organizations like the Air Force. People, excuse me, the Air Force is calling this guy to have him come talk to him. It's crazy. His wife, Mari Gomez, um, is he and his wife are believing in giving back, and they support women whose lives have been impacted by breast cancer. Because if I'm not mistaken, she's a survivor. Is that correct?
Yes, she's a
Awesome.
survivor.
Awesome. This 501c3 nonprofit called the Mighty Strong Foundation. Um, he and his wife have started and have done this for a little bit. And so I want him to talk a little bit about it. But first, welcome to the show, Daniel Gomez.
Hey, brother John, man, thank you so much. I'm pumped up. I'm ready to rock and roll and add some value, man. And I'm just a simple guy who just took a step of faith, man. You got to take a step of faith in life. And almost 4 years ago, when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, we had the money, the Corvettes, the Rolexes, the Mont Blancs, you name it. But God put me in a position where that wasn't going to save me, man. So many times our check engine light comes on in life. That check engine light comes on in life and we ignore it. We ignore it. We keep driving. Then a month later, 3 months later, 6 months later, we have a blown engine and we're like, what happened? Well, you ignored the red light. And I'll tell you, for many years, I ignored that red light for many years. You see, because I knew the principles of God, I knew the principles of leadership. I was doing them, but the thing that God didn't have my heart, and He had to put me in a place. And not that I wish my wife had breast cancer, but that was an eye opener where He put me in a position where I couldn't help and save myself, and I had to turn to Him, and I ended up resigning from leading multi-million-dollar corporations because my wife got depressed. She had a double mastectomy, and He gave me a vision of what to become, what to do, and I was scared, but man, I took that leap of faith. I jumped. Right? Think of a mother eaglet, a mother eagle. She pushes her eaglets outside the nest. Not that she doesn't love them, but just that it's time to fly. And so many of us, we play it safe. We put ourselves in our own cage. And sometimes God speaks to us and we're just there not listening. And He has to push us out of that nest and says, all right, guys, let's do this.
That's right. That's right, man. I love that perspective, and I love your story. And I'm gonna probably even love more the more I hear about it. But man, I know He's done some magnificent things in your life, and I know you're gonna share with the audience some things that are gonna help them today. And we do a different theme every month, and so February we're starting out. It's called Continuity of Care, C.A.R.E. And so I come from a medical sales background for 15 years almost. And I will tell you, continuity of care is huge. It's continuous, it's consistent, it's smooth transitioning when patients are getting treatment environment and then they come home. You want that continuity of care. You want that consistency to keep them on that path. And so our continuity of care, our context is around C.A.R.E, courage, attitude, resilience, and empowerment. These are 4 things that I'm telling you exploded in my brain when I was thinking of this. I don't know what I was thinking about continuity of care, my work and the parallel there, but I found these to be huge in my life. And I think they're going to be huge in these people's lives listening. So audience, get ready. We're about to take this plane to another level. Daniel, I'm going to come at you with some questions, and I want you to share your personal experiences, your insight, your perspective, your wisdom, because I know God is speaking to you to impact these people today. So let's start off with the big one, man. The big word, courage, man. What does that mean to you? I mean, give us an idea. Why is it difficult to demonstrate courage? But tell the audience what it is first.
Well, courage is just having the ability to act in spite of fear, right? When you have courage, you act in spite of fear. You act in spite of being scared, man. You got to just act. And it sounds so simple, but the scripture that comes to mind is you must come to him believing that he is a rewarder. And when you know that God is a rewarder of them who diligently seek him, you take that step of faith. And a good example of that, man, like when COVID happened and I lost like $30,000 in paid speaking engagements. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do for the first quarter, second quarter? I had a shift and pivot, and God just said, I want you to start your podcast. And I was like, I don't podcast. I was like, I had been practicing behind the scenes, but I was scared, like, who's going to listen to my podcast? And it was kind of on the back burner because I was being very successful as a keynote speaker, as a corporate trainer, and we were rocking and rolling. But the thing is that it was time for that growth. And so many times we don't have the courage to grow outside of our comfort zone. And I'll tell you, as I started the process, it was amazing once you get out of that fear-based, that scaredness, that you just have the courage to ask for help. And the thing is, people are there to help you. You just don't realize it. I reached out to Alex Stern, co-founder of Constant Contact. I reached out to Tony Watley, great friend from Houston, Texas, runs a big organization over there. Said, hey, man, you want to be on my podcast? And next thing you know, I had too many people. I couldn't put everybody on there. And this is the thing, though. How many blessings are you missing out because you're allowing this being the fear and the scared attitude to keep you from acting in spite of that, right? The courage is being bold as a lion and just going forward. And when you do that, I would have missed out on so many things for 2021 right now because we won Podcast of the Year last year. And we have had Mark Victor Hansen on our podcast. We've had Evan Carmichael, Forbes Riley, and these are top entrepreneurs that just really add value to our platform. And it's just, but you have to act. So courage is acting in spite of fear and being scared, right? We're all scared of the dark, but you got to go out in the dark and just know that greater is a power behind you than any task in front of you.
That's awesome. And to me, it sounds like you're talking about trust too. Like you got to trust God beyond your own strength, because if you're fearful in that situation and it's paralyzing you, it's because you're only sort of captivated in your own abilities. Like you're kind of held captive in that, and you're boxing yourself in. You're boxing God in too. If you don't kind of just step out there, watch what he does. What a great, test. God says in the Bible, he says, test me, whenever he's talking about giving the tithes and offerings, he's like, test me. I'll pour out a blessing that you can hardly contain. So that's fearful in itself, tithing and offering. So just to give the audience some clarity, man, it's about trusting God to do what he says he's going to do. And if you believe him, and like Daniel said, he's a rewarder of them who diligently seek him. If you believe him and you seek him and you trust him, watch what he does. So talk about a time. Give us a real life example, man. I know you're talking about the podcast and you were fearful, but talk about maybe in some of your professional life before the speaking and the podcast and being an author, talk to the regular business leader right now, just the guy that's maybe struggling to be a courageous leader.
Well, you know what? This is a courage in leadership, is that most leaders in leadership, I see it as I go do my trainings and do my executive coaching, they have a lack mentality. They have a fixed pie in the sky mentality. And the thing is, they don't want to let go of control,
Right.
right? You have to have the courage to let go of control and let go of those insecurities that you have. Because
Mm,
in the back of every leader, they're scared that somebody that's coming up underneath them is going to get their position. So instead of lifting them up, they suppress them subconsciously. They're not even aware of it because of their instinctive behaviors, of the conditioning of the programming. It's like me and you were talking before we started, right? We're talking about business and everything. Well, okay, I do these trainings on purpose, right? I say, okay, who wants to be a multimillionaire? Oh, I do. Okay, how come you're not one? Because you don't have the mindset for it. You have to have the mindset of courage. You have to have the mindset of abundance. And most leaders, they have a scarcity mindset. That's why they play. We've all heard that terminology, helicopter mom. Well, guess
yeah.
what? There's a lot of helicopter leaders out there.
Wow.
And that keeps their organization. That's where the law of the lid comes in place. So if you're a scarcity mindset leader, which over 50% of them are, I would say it's much higher than that.
Wow.
If your leadership level is 5, your organization is never going to rise above that. If your leadership level is 7, you're never going to rise above that. So it's the leader's responsibility to open up that lid and let people trust them, right? Get rid of that. But they don't have the courage to do it because they live in that scarcity mindset, and they come from a place of lack and a place instead of a place of abundance.
That's good. That's good. Cause I mean, you're walking right into the theme of this whole entire platform, which is servant leadership, last in line leadership. What does that mean? Well, it means you're propping others up. You're empowering and equipping others so that they can walk the path you did. Like it's not about you get to that point and then everybody else kind of stay behind you. You know, it's trying to build leaders. That's the whole point of you becoming a leader, was so
Yeah,
that you
well,
can build other people.
well, I was in Asia. We did 4 leadership trainings in Asia in October, and
Wow.
live we went there, right? God said to go, so we went. I went, and it was amazing. But this is we did an exercise, and there was a lot of pride and ego in that room.
Mm.
And God just said, I want you to wash somebody's feet. I was like, what? Wash somebody's feet. So there was like a little pan on this side, and I said, come here. So I did it. And I told the leadership team, I said, look, the problem is you won't do this. You won't do this. You don't have the courage to die to self and get rid of the entitlement. Come and do this. I didn't tell them that, but I was thinking that. But I did tell them they didn't have the courage to do that, right? They didn't have the humility to do it. So a gentleman was just right there in the front chairs, and I just grabbed him and I said, "Here, sit right here." And I didn't say nothing. I just did it for like about 5 minutes. Just took my time, right? Took off his shoe and just I extended it on purpose because I wanted them to soak in the moment. And I'll tell you what, people started crying, man. People started crying, and
Whoa.
and and I said, the reason your business is not growing, the reason your organization is stunned is because there's ego in the room. And when your ego rises, the only thing that comes before the fall is ego and pride.
Wow. Hey, I mean, wow. What a picture you just painted for them. I mean, you probably just in that 5 minutes impacted them more than any words you ever said. Like just your actions, impacted that room. And that's incredible. Like I don't know that I would have had the courage to do that. That's impressive. I mean, guys listening, whoever's listening, like I think you now know what courage is. And I think you now know that you can exhibit it. You have it in you. We're all wired to be courageous, right? But we've got to press into that strength beyond our own and yield to a bigger power and the power of the Holy Spirit. We got momentum now. Let's transition, baby. I'm fired up too now. I'm
Oh,
about
baby, let's do
half
this.
a cup of coffee and I'm ready to go. So the next one, the next one's huge too, right? Like this next one's probably gonna be what impacts you able to activate your courage. It's our attitude. So we're talking about C.A.R.E, right? We got A for attitude. I mean, what other fuel is out there to activate you just walking this thing out and putting steps one after the other, but your attitude? So, I mean, I've talked to you before we got on the air. Like I talked to you for maybe 2 minutes And I could already tell you have an attitude that wins. Your attitude wins. It's because you don't give it permission to do anything else, right? And so talk about attitude to the audience, because I know they're going to love this.
Well, attitude is the most important ingredient to success. First of all, you can have all the college, you can have all the MBAs, you can have all the PhD, but if your attitude stinks, you're not going to make it. And when I say that from experience, because when I ran a multi-million-dollar corporation in 2008, when the economy crashed, people with MBAs and PhDs were coming to me for a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, as I looked there, mesmerized, right? You look at their resume, you look at that, and I'm thinking like, what's up with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I say that because that was 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I didn't have the understanding that I have now, but now I see sometimes we're too smart for ourselves. And when we're too smart for ourselves, our attitude is this: people below me ain't good enough for me. So we approach life the wrong way. So the biggest mistake that we make is this: is when I talk about attitude, I always get everybody right. I set them up. So how's your attitude? And the first thing everybody says, well, I'm positive, right? Like, but they have that's just a shallow understanding of what attitude is. It's not just being positive and negative. There's attitudes at a deeper level. What's your attitude how you approach life? How's your attitude how you approach leadership? What's your attitude towards people that don't have your education level? And you realize that subliminally because you go to a higher, say you went to Harvard, you went to Princeton. There was a doctor that we spoke to from Stanford, and it's like he was so smart, but yet he was so naive and he was so ignorant because he didn't understand. And we put on these blinders like horses, and our attitude is just shunned. So we can't see to the left, we can't see to the right. All we have is our own perspective. And the worst thing that we can do in leadership is just see things from our point of view. And many people have that attitude that it's my way is the right way, and it's not. So you have to have the attitude of how do you embrace the day? What's the attitude of how you embrace the moment? And how's the attitude of how you embrace, right? Is your attitude that I have to or I get to do things? Think about that.
Yeah.
Right. And leadership in your own home. Yeah. Well, yes, you decided to have children. So, but you don't have to make them dinner. No, you get to make them dinner. It was your decision. Embrace the decisions that you made. Because self-leadership starts in the house. Self-leadership starts with you. So the attitude has to be, I'm going to take ownership of what I've created, and I'm going to take ownership. The attitude is I'm going to own it. The attitude is I'm going to go above and beyond. And the attitude is I'm going to win. That has to be your attitude.
Absolutely.
But many people think attitude is just positive and negative, and it doesn't work that way. So I would encourage everybody watching this video right now, ask yourself, really, what's my attitude? Maybe your attitude is the fact that you feel sorry for yourself, right? You have an attitude of, woe me, I got sick. I lost a loved one. I get it, right? My mom and dad passed away when I was a little kid. I was 26 when I lost my dad. I was 10 years old when I lost my mom. But I didn't let the attitude, I didn't play the victim attitude. And many of us, we get stuck in that wrong attitude where this is the thing. If you put those shades of attitude on, everything you see, if it's a contaminated attitude, everything's contaminated to you.
Yep, absolutely. And as you're talking, man, I'm just beating my fist and saying yes and amen to everything you're saying, because you're saying words that I've heard myself say. And I've talked about in the past something that I call drive versus dread. What drives us and what we dread, to me, are based on our skill, our strengths, and our weaknesses. And so sometimes our weaknesses or our shortcomings or our insecurities, like you said a minute ago, sometimes that impact, well, not sometimes, all the time, what we focus on impacts the attitude. If we're focused on what we're not good at, guess what? Our attitude's going to be toxic. If we're focused on what drives us, which is our strengths, our attitude's going to be more, hey, let's get this done. Let's activate my strengths. Let's put legs on this. Let's do this. Instead of, I can't, man, I don't think I should. I don't know, because we're focused on our weaknesses and we're dreading a particular activity. And it's funny because I told you I was going to go off script today, and it's funny you said all that you said, but I'm reading this book right now. It's called 10 Passions to a Man's Soul by Mark Elfstrand. And I'm going to tell you, I've had this book for probably 20 years. And for some reason, I see it on my bookshelf and I'm just like, hey, what is, and I pull it down and I'm like, I remember I had marks in it, where I've read it before. And he had something in there called social capital. And social capital is where you acknowledge what you've been given. You acknowledge the influence that's in you. Like that's your capital, right?
Yeah.
And you've been called to use that. We all want capital, right? That word capital is, everybody's coveting capital, right? Oh, I need capital. Social capital, we're talking about it right now, and attitude's a big part of it. So your advice to a person listening, let's say they're like, they've got to, they feel like they've got a good attitude. Like you said, they've got a positive attitude, but they feel stuck. So what would your advice be to them who, let's say they're easily impacted by what's happening to them around them? Circumstances and surroundings are driving their attitude. What would you say should drive their attitude?
Well, it goes back to mindset and conditioning. We all have I call them instinctive behaviors. We all have them. Under pressure, under stress, we all resort back to that. And so you want to find out what a person's like, put them under stress, put them under pressure.
Yeah.
And who they really are is going to come out.
Yeah.
And the thing is, most people, we have that lack mentality. We have that, right? Our perspective is we don't have enough instead of having more than enough. So I would tell them they really need to focus on what's the input. What are they inputting into themselves? And second of all, I think what's even more powerful than that is just your proximity. What's your environment like? Because what you put it this way. Before you brought up a book, before we started, you had written a book, and it's great, right? So you have a proximity, right? You're in the proximity of authors now. Well, the proximity of authors, the conversations that you talk about in this proximity are totally different than the proximity of the medical industry that you come from.
Right.
Two totally different conversations. So many times we get stuck in our old proximity, and all we talk about is just, oh, the good old days, what happened. And it keeps us in bondage as to, right, where do I want to go? Let me start talking about these things. And when you switch your proximity, you switch the conversations. You enhance your conversations to actually add value to you. And you're like, wow, I didn't think about that. Right? Kind of like you right now. Yeah. We're talking, but you wrote a book and it put you in a different proximity where your thinking starts to change. But so many times we stay stuck in that old proximity and we talk about the same things over and over and over again. And that's going to affect your attitude, because if put it this way, think about this. If me and you are hanging out with the chickens, right? What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about what are we going to peck all day? But if our attitude is with the eagles, we're going to be like, man, what are we going to soar to today?
Yeah.
Two totally different attitudes, right? Wow. Two totally different attitudes. And what I mean by that, here you're stuck on the ground, you're limiting yourself, and over here you're flying, and there's endless possibilities. But so many of us, our attitude is we don't see ourselves the way we should too.
That's great. And I mean, you wrote a book called You Were Born to Fly. I'm only imagining that you had some eagle references in there as well. I've heard you mention an eagle twice, and that's my favorite animal. So I'm guessing that was part of what made you come up with that. But no, so I mean, I think it's huge. I don't think we can say enough about attitude, but it's also a choice. Your circumstances can't drive your attitude. It's got to be foundational. It's got to be unshakable. It's got to be basic, grounded in the word from experience of you and I, grounded in our faith. And I can't imagine how people do it without that. But, it's got to be unshakable. Our attitude can't be based on things that are wavering, or like the guy that builds his house on sand, right? It can't be, it's too easily shaken. So that's another thing, attitude's a choice. So I know a lot of people that are in way worse circumstances and have good attitudes than people who are in, really good surroundings and have terrible attitudes. So, I mean, it's possible. So don't talk yourself out of a good attitude just because of a situation you're in, is what I would say. But let's move on. So we're building this house, right? We got courage, we got attitude. We're building this baby. We got the third wall of the house, a 4-wall house, right? The third wall, I think, is resilience, man. bro, it's got, the definition is just pretty simple. It's like, it's how you fight through adversity. Um, it's how you operate when the heat's turned up. And you talked about pressure, find out really what a man is when you turn up the heat. Man, how would you grade our society? Let's talk to the world today, Daniel Gomez. Address the world right now. How would you say society's doing with their ability to be resilient right now?
I would say good and bad. I would say
Yeah.
good and bad. And the reason I say that is because right now you're finding out who the true leaders are in our country, in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. In business, many
Mm-hmm.
businesses closed down because they don't have the resilience. They got scared, they paralyzed, and they stopped moving forward. As to in our business, we doubled our revenue in 2020. Why? Because you have to take those risks. You have to throw those rocks that are you have to take those rocks that are thrown at you and know that those rocks that are thrown at you are making you stronger, are making you more resilient. So my question to the audience is this: is how strong is your bounce back, right? How strong is your bounce back? It's not a question of you're gonna fail. Well, I fail. You're going to fail. You're not going to fail one time. You're not going to fail two times. You're not going to fail five. You're going to fail 10, 20 times.
I love
But
it.
how many times are you going to get back up? And I think of the great quote from the great Winston Churchill that says, failure is going, right? Success is going from failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm. And
Woo.
believe me, it stinks. I mean, it sucks, forgive my language, but there's times when I came up with this quote, and actually I'm going to repost it now that I'm talking about it. You're not a true entrepreneur. You're not a true business owner until you've sat in the restroom crying and you were 99.9% sure you were going to give up and quit, but you didn't.
That 1%, right? That 0.1% drove you.
And until you've been there, you're never going to have success because that if you don't pass those tests that the world that God puts before you, that means you weren't meant for that. And so many of us, we quit and we're right there. We're right there. Like our great friend, right? She says we're 3 feet from gold and we quit. Don't quit. And and the thing is your resilience is built up. It's not going to be strong right off the bat, but you got to work on your bounce back. A good example of that is when I applied for 50 paid speaking engagements, didn't get one. And I was discouraged. I wanted to give up. But going through that process and then having a coach to guide me through that, it helped me to reframe my thinking. And it helped me to get over that. Because so many times our pride gets in the way and our ego, and we think we can go at it by ourselves, and we can't. We need somebody who's where we want to go. And a good example of that, when I left corporate America, the first year that I did it, I had a business mindset, but it's totally different when you go into business for yourself, because instead of spending the $100,000 on the corporations tab, it's on your tab, and you're not so easily to spend it. And then the second thing is expanding your capacity to ask for help and receive that, because this is the main thing is that if there's not a space and a place for you to really grow and develop, you're not going to do that. And you got to give yourself that space and the place. So why go in circles over and over and over when you have somebody that's been there that can show you? And I think resilience comes by A, going through some experiences, and B, you get stronger because you have it's kind of like if me and you were going hiking. We'd say we're going to Mount Everest, and I'm like, John, like, I've done mountains, but never this one, dude. You're like, I've done it before, right? So automatically my resilience goes up because I trust you that you've already been there. So my resilience attaches to your resilience, and the fact that I believe in you is going to help carry me further than if I would go at it alone. And that's where resilience comes in. So sometimes there's that independent resilience, but then you have that resilience where you have that collaboration resilience, which takes you even further, because for a fact, I know John's been here. He's done it. I saw the pictures. Hey, I trust you, man, and let's go. And that just makes you stronger because it's all mental. It's all mental.
It gives you hope, man, whenever you kind of walk by somebody that's done it before. And what I will say, and I tell, I coach my son's junior high baseball team, and I'll tell you right now, I tell my kids, you learn more from pain or failure than you do from success or comfort. So I wholeheartedly believe that Do I want everybody to fail so they can learn some stuff? No. But I'm telling you, if you accept it as part of the journey, like we're so fearful of failure because we think it shouldn't be a factor. It shouldn't be something we consider. Let's consider it because it's going to happen. We won't be so surprised by it. I mean, our expectation shouldn't be to fail, but we shouldn't be surprised if we do in a certain area. And I say fail, I mean, fail's a harsh word, but if we learn a lesson, if we make a mistake, if we fall short, I put all that under failure, right? Because
You
to
know
me,
what?
failure is kind of a
I have a word for somebody because you said that, and I want somebody
yeah,
needs to hear
go.
this, listening to
Yeah,
this. Just because you fail does not make you a failure. I don't know who
right.
that's for right now, but just because you fail, that doesn't make you a failure. And you have failed
That's
before in
good.
life, and you're carrying that shame, you're carrying that guilt. And God
Yes.
is telling you right now, let it go. Let
Yes.
that failure go. Let that mistake go. Just because you failed as a father, just because you failed in a relationship, just because you failed at a
Yep.
job and you got fired, that doesn't make you a failure.
Yes.
That's where the grace of God comes in. So look at me and listen to this. You're not a failure. You're an overcomer. Those things like we're talking about, they're just making you stronger. They're making you more resilient. They're making you the person that you were created to be.
That's it. That's perfect. Absolutely. Exactly what I wanted to hear you say. And what I was trying to say, because I know that failure is a label we put on ourselves. I am a, right? Maybe
Yes.
instead of put in I've experienced failure, put a different group of words in front of failure, not I am a, but I've experienced some fail. And I'm telling you, if you watch what God's teaching you in those moments, man, if we just stop and listen to what we're supposed to learn in that lesson, man, it builds us, it makes us stronger, it shoves us into that next step of our purpose or our destiny. It makes us grow. And so, man, thank you for sharing that. I know somebody needed to hear that. I mean, man, that's big time. um we just, as a society, I don't feel like we're um where we could be. And it all kind of goes back to what we talked about before with our attitude, you know,
Yeah.
because I mean, I think our attitude is actually what breeds our resilience. And so, I don't know. I think you just need to refuse to lose type mentality. And, we're all wired to win. We're all wired to lead. We're all wired to press through and lean in to adversity. We're all wired that way, man. God gave us
Yeah.
the tools for that to come out the other side of it. So that's what I encourage people is, man, find that resilience chip inside you. There's a fuse inside you that says resilience on it, man. Pull it out, replace it, plug it back in, whatever. It might be loose wiring. I don't know, but man, we've all got it in us. So as we transition, man, to close this thing out, this part I think is going to build on what we've already talked about and give our listeners tangible, practical ways to actually activate this stuff within us. So empowerment. We got C-A-R-E, man, and the E for the last wall of this house we're building is empowerment. So, man, I mean, what are ways that you've equipped and empowered yourself for leadership, for influence, man? What are some ways you've built yourself to
Well, this
that?
is it's pretty simple. Most of us don't give ourselves permission to succeed. We don't give ourselves permission to be empowered. So, what is empowerment? Think about that. Something as simple, right? What empowers people? We're human beings. God created us as human beings. And what I mean by that is we're created to help other people. We're created to belong to something bigger than ourselves. That's the way we're wired. That's our DNA. Just the same way everybody has a basic personality. There's 4 basic personalities. Well, we forget about whether we're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, right? That's who we are because of our DNA as far as our who we are. But there's
Yeah.
also a personality DNA within us. And I say that because when you give yourself permission to be empowered, it doesn't matter where you come from, but you're never going to empower yourself if you can't celebrate yourself. Because if you can't celebrate yourself, you're
Mm-hmm.
never going to celebrate others.
Mm.
And that's where true empowerment comes in. And what do I mean by that? It's because right away you kill that empowerment because we come from a place of judgment, right? We've been taught that. Everybody's been taught that. If you're
Mhm.
Hispanic, you're like, look at those white people. If you're white, man, look at those people, right? Look at those Mexicans. Whatever it is, unfortunately, we have this conditioning as a society, because we're talking about society. And
Sure.
whether I go speak in California, or I go speak in Florida, or I go speak here, 90% of Americans have the same foundation. It's a true fact. I'm going to prove it to you, right? So I'm going to start a sentence and I want you to finish it. Okay, John?
Yeah.
Right. So you don't live where I live. You don't live in San Antonio. You live in another city. So I want you just to go with me on this, right? Money doesn't grow on.
Trees.
That's just the way it
Is.
Who do you think
Are.
the early bird gets the,
Worm.
right? And when I do this exercise that we just did, whether it's in California, Florida, wherever I go and speak, everybody knows the answer. Why? Because we've been conditioned to think that way.
It's good.
We've been conditioned. So going back to the empowerment, we've been conditioned to judge people. And nothing kills our empowerment like judgment. Because in reality, we're judging ourselves. And another thing that kills our empowerment is if you're complaining, man, you're losing all your empowerment. And what do I mean by that? Think about when the Israelites left Egypt. They left multi-millionaires. If you study the word, it says that they left with the riches of Egypt and the all the wealth.
Mm-hmm.
But many didn't go into the promised land. Why? Because of murmuring and complaining. And when you murmur and complain, it kills your creativity, but more importantly, it kills your empowerment. And if you can't empower yourselves, how are you going to empower others?
Yeah, and man, when you're saying that scripture comes to me that's pretty widely used when it says love your neighbor as yourself. If you don't love yourself, or you don't think highly of yourself, how are you supposed to act that out? How are you supposed to walk that scripture out? If you can't love yourself, how are you going to love your neighbor? So yeah, I hear what you're saying, because we do. And I just released a workbook that I wrote just a couple weeks ago, and one of the chapters is called Managing Mindset, and the subtitle is Limit Your Limitations. And so we're limiting ourselves. We got to limit the amount that we limit ourselves, right? So
Yeah.
what you're talking about is you're boxing yourself in, man. You're tying yourself up, man. I don't know. We're zip tying ourselves to this, to the cinder block here in our spirit, in our mindset, and our attitude. But
Well, we
yeah,
do
to
that though.
empower.
So how
Yeah,
does that apply to business? How does that apply
yeah,
to leadership?
yeah,
Well, if you can't celebrate yourself as a leader, if you can't empower yourself as a leader, how can you empower others?
yeah.
How can you come and empower others? Instead of looking at the best in our employees and our team and our staff, we nitpick the little things that they do
Mm-hmm.
because it's just a reflection of what we see in ourselves sometimes.
Yeah,
Not always, but in many times the projection that we get from other people, it's like who we are at the core. So if
right.
you're not empowering yourself, you're not empowering your team to be the best that they can be.
Yeah,
And one person can affect the whole team. Think about Brady, right? Brady wasn't empowered in New England, and I don't care what anybody says. You can see Belichick was a leader of that team, right? He
sure.
is the head coach, but he was a dominating. He had some insecurity somewhere along the way, and he goes to Tampa Bay. And he still flourishes, right? Because think about this: he was being developed as a leader underneath a dictator leader to say, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden he gets the freedom to be who Brady
Yep.
wants to be. And how does he take a bunch of, and I don't say misfits just in a bad way, but people that they stunk last year, but
Right.
he empowered them to believe in themselves because he believed in who he was, because he had overcome so much adversity. I've been there. Let's do this. Go with me. Kind of like we talked about the resilience, because when the season started, they stunk.
Yeah.
But that's what you do when you empower others, because you first have to empower yourself. And when you do that, that's when the magic happens.
Yeah. And I mean, it's all about freedom. It's all about freedom to kind of unlock yourself, unlock what's kind of been you have been pushing down inside you and just kind of keeping stuffed and oppressed. It's about freedom, unlocking some of that. What is your, as kind of a parting shot for the audience? Give some advice to the person listening. Man, you've been given so much already. I bet you if watch somebody writing notes, there's at least 2 pages of notes right now. But man, what's your advice for somebody searching for purpose that's felt immobilized? We
Oh,
talked
that's
about that
easy.
fear and that insecurity. What's the advice for, that's been preventing them from mobilizing that inside them, that leadership?
That's easy. They're chasing the money, man. They're chasing the money. I just had this conversation with an executive. He started crying. And I just let him cry. You got to use wisdom.
Mm.
And as we sat there in his office, he started telling me a story of his childhood. And I was just listening to him, and then tears rolled down. I said, so what do you gather from all this conversation that we're having? He goes, well, I wasn't born to be in this box, the office that he was in. He goes, I feel unfulfilled. I've been having migraines. And I said, well, why do you stay here? The money, right? The money and the title. And the moment you release and let go of the money and the title, and you open your heart, because this is what I asked him. I said, do you think this is your gift? He goes, no. So many times we take a job or we go down a career because our parents tell us, right? Everybody hears it. Going back to the money doesn't grow on trees, we've been programmed that way.
Yeah.
If you think about what are the two things every parent tells their kids, every parent, they program their kids to think this, right? In their mind, they're like, to be successful, you got to be what? A doctor or a lawyer?
Mm-hmm.
You know who the most unhappiest professions are? A doctor and a lawyer. True fact.
Mm.
But I say that because the moment you give yourself permission to unlock your gift, God's given all of us a gift. Everybody's gift is different. So I want to encourage you, don't stay in that place of prominence, of entitlement, just because of the title and the money, because right now you're feeling empty. Right now you're feeling unfulfilled. Somebody watching this, and you need to understand that that's not your gifting. That's not your purpose. So your purpose is tied to your gift.
Right.
Everybody has a different gift. Some have the gift of being a chef. Some have the gift of being an NFL player, but some have the gift of being that successful business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been unhappy because you've been stuck in that job and you wonder, why am I angry? Why? Think about this. I'm going to end with this.
Yeah.
I want you to pretend here, this is a glass of milk. And me and you are having cookies and milk, and then we go outside and play a game of football, and then we come back, but we forgot we didn't drink our milk. And it's been 5 hours later. What do you think's going on with that milk?
Yeah.
Would we drink it? We're not going to drink it. Why?
No.
Because it's spoiled, right? It'll poison our bodies. Well, this milk is the untapped potential that we all have. That when you don't use that untapped potential, it poisons your body. And many of those emotions, those feelings you're having, it's that untapped potential that has started poisoning your body because you're not using it because you were born for more.
Mm. That's so good. So good. I love analogies, and I love the pictures you painted for us, because you really do make it clear, and you've lived it, you teach it, and you're full of encouragement and empowerment for people, and I appreciate that so much. Audience, man, first of all, before we kind of close this out, talk to the audience about your projects and about where they can find your resources too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you can see behind me right here, it's a Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. We won Podcast of the Year. So definitely subscribe and tune into our channel. You're definitely going to get value. We definitely have great people that we try to deliver really value. And you can go to my website, danielgomezglobal.com. And I do executive coaching. And what I'll do I do business coaching and executive coaching. And what I'll do for your audience right now, John, is anybody who reaches out to me at info@danielgomezinspires.com. That's info at danielgomezinspires.com. We'll give you a free assessment in a discovery session of 30 minutes and just kind of see how maybe we can add value to you in one way. So I want to give that gift to you. And then
Wow.
my branding as part of it is Daniel Gomez Inspires. So if you go to LinkedIn, Facebook, you go to YouTube, Daniel Gomez Inspires is our brand, and you can find us all over the web on that. So, but we just love people, man, and I want to help out. So reach out to me and info at danielgomezinspires.com and www.danielgomezglobal.com.
Very good. Very good. And his book is called You Were Born to Fly. And it's still available, I assume, on Amazon, correct? Other
Yes,
places? Yeah.
actually, it's on Amazon, and if you want to get a copy of the ebook, it's we actually have it on our website. It's a little bit more cost effective, so you can go to our
Okay.
website, the danielgomezglobal.com, and you can download. You can buy a copy of our ebook from the Sticker Shock, the day you realize you're worth millions and you were born to fly. So we got both our books there.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Hey, couldn't have been a better episode, audience. Couldn't have been a better way to start out February. The continuity of care, it was just dripping with greatness today, man. And we just built a four-wall house. You saw that. We built it with courage, with attitude, with resilience, and with empowerment. And I'm telling you, storms are going to come and we're going to need shelter. And I'm telling you, we just built a house that's not going to be shakable. So audience, I know you can play this back and even get more out of it, but man, I couldn't thank you enough for coming on the show. I know you're busy. I know you're teaching companies, you're building leaders, and you made time for our audience, and I can't thank you enough. But audience, I'm just going to tell you right now, February is going to be a month that we win. You're going to win in different areas of your life. You're going to walk away today being more courageous, having a better attitude, being more resilient. And I think you're going to walk away empowered. So I think we accomplished what we set out to do today. And audience, I'm encouraging you to go out today and pick one thing to start being different. But until next time, be blessed.